Hey everyone, I'm so excited about today's episode, but first want to let you know that this show is made possible by Fortune Builders. I also want to take a minute to invite you guys to an amazing opportunity to learn from some of the top experts in the real estate industry about how to get started in real estate or scale an existing business to the next level. Fortune Builders is hosting a one-day webinar to help you learn about real estate investing in today's market. So throughout the show, if you feel like you're ready to get started, go to FortuneBuildersShow.com to register. Again, that's FortuneBuildersShow.com to register. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you'll find a link right below the show so you can get there that way as well. And please remember that the content of this show and every show is for educational purposes only. Myself or our guests are not going to be providing any legal, financial, or professional advice. If we share specific results, they are attributed to an individual or a business, and we can't guarantee the results will happen for you, those earnings or the income will match those figures. The bottom line is there's always risk when investing in real estate. You can make a lot of money or you can lose a lot of money, and it's hard work. But that doesn't mean we can't have fun doing it. So let's get into today's episode.
From a team that has $1 billion in real estate investment experience. A show to help you learn the strategies and systems it takes to get started investing in real estate. This is the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Show.
All right, everyone. You've got your good friend JD Esajian here on the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Show. And once again, I want to remind you and introduce you to my partner in crime, Mr. Daniel Wright.
Hello, JD.
Hello, welcome once again. We've got a powerful, action-packed, not as much action as the Fast and Furious franchise, but we've got some tie-ins with Fast and Furious and a lot of action on this podcast nonetheless. So we're going to do another case study for you today. Like, I'm talking hot off the presses, just closed, in recent market dynamics that we're going to talk about. We're excited, we're anxious, we're ready, and we're going to get after it. So hold on to your pants, hold on to your seat. Before we do, we got to talk about the phrase or the acronym or the word of the week, which, speaking of Fast and Furious,
I'm going to
Dan,
guess you just watched this movie, JD.
you know what? It's one of those things when you're flipping through cable and you turn on, you see Fast and Furious 25. You're like, oh man, what's happening with Dom and the guys and gals in this one? I did watch 5, 6, 7. I don't remember exactly. But the word or acronym of the week is DOM. D-O-M. No joke, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll talk about what that stands for later on in the show, and so let's get after it. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to jump into the case study and talk about the word of the week. We've got a good one for you. I could just play Fast and Furious, the first one, and we could just break that movie down because it is a good movie. But we'll go ahead and get started with the case study.
I'm hoping you have some movie clips to share.
With all this talk of Fast and Furious, I should.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a fan of The Rock, who's starred in quite a few of them. Rest in peace, Paul Walker. He definitely had his place in the franchise. But we're going to talk about real estate actually on the podcast today, Dan.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to see how Dom plays into this.
Yeah,
so.
well, you just hold your breath because it's going to happen. All right. We got a good case study for you. It's been a couple of weeks now since we've done a case study. The market has changed and shifted, and Dan and I talked about that on a recent podcast, actually the last podcast. Before I before I move forward, this show, Dan, believe it or not, is the 50th episode of the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Podcast.
That's impressive.
Let that sink in.
It's the irony that's also how old you are.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not. I'm closer to 50 than you are, but I'm not there yet.
You're not there. Okay.
I'm not there yet.
I wasn't sure.
Thank you for the vote of confidence. I will be 49 at the end of this year.
Okay.
So I'm quite a bit closer to 50 than you are. But today this episode is our 50th episode, and we're super proud of that. We're also very appreciative of everyone's support, watching, listening. Thank you for all that. Obviously, share and like and comment as you do, and we appreciate it. So we're honored to do a good case study on the 50th episode, and we got a good one today. So we'll talk about it as we normally do. Dan will spend quite a bit of time breaking down the acquisition strategy, which we actually bought it, fixed it, and sold it this year. We bought it at the beginning of this year. We just sold it a few days ago. Dan will talk about that. We'll obviously break down the rehab. And then we'll talk about the sales, because that's, I mean, all areas are unique in this transaction, but the sales side of it hit right when market changes happened, rates went up. Then you obviously know the outcome of this transaction. Everyone watching and listening doesn't, but we'll break it down for them so you can learn, and you can have the experience, not doing the transaction yourself, but the learning lessons and takeaways that we'll talk about. So here is the single family home that we purchased. We don't own it anymore. As I said, we sold it. 6769 Rock Glen Ave. Quiz for you, Dan. Can you name the neighborhood that this is such an easy one. This is a softball lob to you.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and describe the neighborhood that this home is in?
So this is in Claremont Mesa East.
Ding, 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 ding. Correct.
And there is a west.
That must mean there's a
Genesee
north and a
splits it.
south as well?
There's not. There's actually not. It does share the same zip code as Linda Vista.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that buyers or agents could get confused on. They might say, this is Linda Vista, but that's a totally different neighborhood, but same zip code.
And you're listening to Dan and or watching Dan talk about the neighborhood, and it's important. A takeaway there is, know your areas. I mean, that's a obvious statement in any market, but especially in the market we're in now. Zip codes, while your home may be in a certain zip code, obviously can get confused with another neighborhood in that same zip code where the values change dramatically. So it's, not zip code specific. I mean, homes within zip codes and pockets obviously can change value. And so know that and have that, know it like the back of your hand, like Dan does on the homes that we purchase and make decisions on. So here's a map view of where the house sits. Obviously, I zoomed out a little bit. I wouldn't say it's as close to water as that map picture shows.
Yeah, it's a quick,
but
5-10 minute drive.
Yeah,
more like 10 minutes.
It's
and
ocean adjacent, as we like to
right
say.
there. Yeah. The best part about this, JD, is it's extremely central.
Yeah.
It's like we do a lot of coastal properties, and you can get kind of trapped when you're in the
You
coast. Here you're close to Montgomery Field Airport. You're 15 minutes to the international airport. You're close to the bay. Plenty of shopping.
Yep.
You have a college just south of there. You have the hospital. So everything is there. Lots of jobs in that area.
Good point. And these homes in this part of town, while like Dan said, are centrally located, are also relatively affordable. I say relatively because where you live, values are going to be different than what we're talking about here. But this home is actually near, price point wise, the median that we have in our entire county.
For detached,
detached homes.
That's right.
Yep. So a lot of good things about this neighborhood. We do a lot of transactions in this neighborhood. And this is a good case study for the timeliness of it and some of the learning lessons that we'll pull out of this for you. But you can see it's freeways everywhere. You can get to the water quickly. You got everything you need. Hiking if you want to do that nearby. You can get to East County in a flash.
You got the DMV right there too.
I mean, who doesn't want to reside right next to the DMV? Thank goodness you can do most things online now with the DMV. There's not much worse than having to wait in line at the DMV. But if you needed to, you could get there quickly from this home.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about numbers, and then Dan will break down some of the things that the numbers don't describe. This home was listed on the MLS, and you'll see and or you'll hear two numbers here: a contract price and then a purchase price number. So when we locked it up at a contract price on paper of $966. We ended up buying the home. Our net purchase price was $942. Now that difference is a commission. In this particular case, I represented CT Homes. JD Esajian, don't put the commission in my pocket. We factored that into our cost basis of the transaction. So our effective purchase price was $942. We bought it in late January of 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Dan, but I believe we had an ARV when we purchased it, which stayed pretty consistent. It
Yeah.
didn't go up, of
Yep.
1,220,000.
It was 122, and something else to talk about, which we haven't talked about much. That net purchase of 942. There was a period, if you remember, over 5 years ago, where we used to write the offer at 942, and then say that we'd waive the commission.
Yes.
And we tried that for a while, but it just didn't translate back to the seller.
Yeah. Good point.
It didn't make sense. Agents
Yeah.
couldn't explain it. So it turns out that it's better just to do the higher price and receive that commission.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll get asked trainings or boot camps or different events. Speaking of trainings or boot camps, if you go to FortuneBuildersShow.com, you can get registered for other trainings that we do. One of our key classes with one of our key trainers around acquisitions and funding, since we're talking about acquisitions. So go to FortuneBuildersShow.com or click on the link below the video you're watching. At the end of this year in November, it's a little earlier than previous years, we're going to do Real Estate Ignite. And as Dan knows, and some of you know, but probably not everyone knows, it's live this year, meaning we're going to be there in person, not virtual. And we're excited. We're going to have a lot of investors there November 11th through the 13th. If you want to get more information, go to realestateignite.com. But talking about the commission and training, right, Dan was discussing, I get asked a lot about that commission. Do you always waive commission? Do you always offer it to the other agent? And it really depends. It depends on the transaction, what the agent wants. Some agents don't want dual representation. Sometimes they just are more comfortable showing a seller a higher number and not over-explaining or needing to explain that the commission is actually coming back to us. Some agents don't even realize necessarily that commission may be going back into the deal.
Right.
Not that we're withholding information or not disclosing something. That's not what I'm saying. They just, they understand this is the number we can pay. And if the commission comes back to me or goes back to the deal, it doesn't matter.
It's not normal for them. So
Exactly.
It's okay to explain that. And, a lot of it depends on the market. In a hot market, when fixers are getting 20 listings and you want to be competitive, you need to bring that commission back, especially if it's on the MLS and everybody sees it.
Absolutely.
Now, when it's a pocket listing and an agent brings it to us, then that switches the conversation with where that commission goes.
Yeah, and if the agent has they really want that commission and they want to represent us, then we do that too. It's fine. So we kind of let the transaction speak for itself, or the agent decide ultimately at the end of the day. When we bought the home, when we analyzed it, we had a renovation budget of around $140,000, and that was the acquisition side. Besides numbers, Dan, why don't you add a little color around anything unique around the negotiation or the agent or anything there that people can learn from?
Yep. So this one was listed. So we purchased it on the 25th. It was listed on the 11th. And so when John, he did his morning filter, he came across this, and it's an agent that we've always wanted to work with. He does a lot of listings. And what helped us, like you mentioned earlier, is we know this area very well. Yeah. Probably better than any other investor. So our confidence when we make offers on a property like this is extremely high. And we were also excited because it's a 4-bedroom house. Yeah. This area has a lot of 3 bedrooms. This model, which we have renovated before, this exact same model, it's got that 4th bedroom, which is kind of a den in the front of the house. So it's a very appealing layout. And that helped too. We could tell the agent we have renovated this exact model before. So it
shows him our like you said, our confidence level.
Yep. And he knew we hadn't seen it yet. We called because we just saw it. We've renovated this before. We know the numbers. And he listed it at $899. So very attractive price. Again,
Good list price.
This is back in January.
Yeah.
Keep in mind,
different market.
It's a different market. Back then, you could pay. We actually could have paid more than $966 back then. It's like you have to have your threshold. You have to draw the line somewhere, so that you're not getting too silly with overpaying, because market can shift, which we'll talk about. So we made our initial offer at $966, and so it was listed on a Tuesday. We offered on it on Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. He did want us to go see it, which is fine.
Fair.
This is in our backyard. It's a 5-minute drive. So on Friday, John drove to the house. He did a walkthrough. It's what we expected. And what the agent had in the confidential remarks. So this is in the listing. This doesn't get syndicated on Zillow, Redfin, other websites. he put this in the confidential remarks, and this is great. So I'm going to read this.
Please
okay?
do.
All right. Sellers to review offers on Monday the 17th, but feel free to make a great offer and tempt them to accept yours sooner.
That's great. I don't think we've ever seen that kind of communication in the confidential remarks of a listing. That's good.
So you know what? John on our team was tempted.
Yes.
Or I should say he did tempt the seller. And, back then.
Good that we did.
We did put an expiration on it. So we knew, we're coming in 67,000 over list.
Strong.
Back then, I know they had over 20 offers.
Yeah.
So we put here's our offer, and it expires on Sunday.
Perfect. Right before they're going to review.
Right before. We don't want this to get to Monday. And they took our offer on Sunday the 16th.
Perfect.
So it never got to that fact where, when people see this, they might think, oh, okay, I'm just going to submit my offer on Monday. That's too late. If you have a strong offer,
it would have been too late on this transaction for sure.
Put it in. So as far as terms go, it was cash as is, and we offered a 9 to 90-day close. It was already vacant.
Seller's choice.
Yep, seller's choice. It was already vacant. They wanted the 9-day close. So we opened escrow on the 16th, and we closed on the 25th.
There you go. So that's some good nuggets there, everyone listening and watching. Not always do we get that kind of writing in the confidential remarks of a listing for the agent telling us to tempt the seller before they're going to review offers. Yep. But we typically don't, when we know what we can pay for a property, whether they're reviewing on Monday, Tuesday, or some other date, we try to get our offer in and try to get it accepted as soon as possible. Because good deals don't last. And this is an example that people that had offered and or were waiting till Monday to offer aren't talking about this as a case study because we bought it, we fixed it, we sold it.
That's right.
So, all right, good stuff. Let's go ahead and shift to the renovation. I'm going to talk some of the numbers on the renovation, and then we'll look at some photos. I would call this a heavy cosmetic upgrade.
That sounds about right.
Right? We didn't do really major layout changes per se. But it needed renovation everywhere. It needed a new kitchen, needed new bathrooms, and flooring. It was really dated, which we'll look at here in a moment. Our budget was $140. We did spend a little bit more than that when it was all said and done. We had to go back and do a couple of things before we found our buyer, which we'll talk about when we get to the sales side. We had a 4-month timeline. We stayed pretty close to that. We had a good timeline on the renovation that we met, and I have the end in mind. Now, you should always have your finished product in mind. The reason I put that there in this particular example, as Dan knows, and we'll talk about it in more detail, get to the sales side after we look at pictures, but there's this particular model home has some good things going for it in the 4 bedrooms. It also has some things that I'd say are less than ideal in today's, the way buyers live today, people live today. The layout and the living room in this particular home is, I would say, awkward. It's not uncommon in this neighborhood, but we'll look at photos. You kind of walk into the living room, and that living room is your family room, kind of TV room, and then it moves to the kitchen really quick. Mm-hmm. But there isn't necessarily a great room feel of this model, and it's kind of odd the way you walk into the room, and you'll look at that. In fact, let's look at photos now for that reason. So with regards to the renovation, having the end in mind in this example means you can solve a lot with staging. You can also hurt your finished product with staging as well. In this particular house, I wouldn't say we hurt the finished product when we staged it initially, but we didn't hit it in the bullseye.
Yeah, we didn't help it.
We didn't help it.
Yeah, that's the whole point of staging.
And that's the whole point of staging. And really that's on me in terms of managing the sales and Emma underneath me. And it wasn't staged bad, but you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to the finished photos. But before we do that, let's look at the before pictures here first.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, JD, is we don't stage that ourselves. Just to be clear, we hire a professional company to do that, and it's just good to note that even the professionals, you have to double check their work. So
and sometimes they have a certain way. A lot of stagers like to stage in I don't know if it's feng shui is the right word, but like this kind of open type feel, which there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes when they do that, the way it looks isn't, people can't wrap their heads around how they're actually going to use the space.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but here's the before of what we bought. So again, I would say the house was livable for sure, but not to current standards. I mean, the outside has a great outdoor space for this neighborhood. Already had a great pergola, trellis, if you will, covered patio that we kept. Now, the inside, you know, while there wasn't anything structurally wrong with it, most people nowadays aren't putting in green carpet.
That's putting green.
Putting
A true
green,
putting green.
Putting green, yeah. Yeah, that's hardcore green there. That's not even like seafoam green. That's just straight up grass green.
Yep.
This particular model has a master bedroom. This is the master bedroom here that you walk into, which the entrance to the master bedroom is pretty close to the kitchen area, which again isn't the ideal layout. And it's got these double doors, and we've remodeled so many of this style home, but you got these double doors, you go in, and then you walk through your closet area to go to the bathroom, which is nothing wrong with that. But again, original home hadn't been updated in most areas from the original build. So this is what it looked like, right? Got a cozy little shower in there. Nothing. You're not gonna fit, you know, a bunch of people in there on your late night parties, but it's got your good stand up shower. And this is the guest bath here.
Yeah, so this house was built in '67, so
Yeah.
you can definitely tell those finishes and that carpet that this is vintage.
Yeah, vintage 67. Wow, they really used that green carpet everywhere. I forgot how much green carpet. Now Dan knows I once owned a home in Big Bear Lake, California that had green carpet, which I would say was a similar shade to this, but it worked in the mountain cabin.
Mhm.
It doesn't work in your coastal adjacent home in San Diego.
No, it collects too much sand in the fibers.
So this is the front entrance. So for those of you that are listening and aren't watching, especially on these case study calls, you should go back and you should watch them because you're obviously not getting the visuals that those of us are watching right now are, and there's a lot to be learned by looking at the visuals. So you got these double doors when you walk in. A lot of good light, although they weren't taking advantage of it the way that this home lives. We did actually, this is a view of the living room that you walk into, and around that wall there is where you get to the dining area / kitchen area. We did open up that wall a little bit to create a better flow, which helps a lot in this particular style home. But other than that, we didn't really make any significant layout changes there.
Yeah, when you say a little bit, I think most of that wall came down.
Yeah,
I guess
basically
we'll see.
all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I should say all of it came down. So this is a view from the other side of the living room when you walk in. There's the front entrance again. Now there's the kitchen. Layout-wise, not again because you haven't seen the after pictures, but we didn't change much of the layout. But you can see, what you can't see is on the left of this photo is that wall, and that wall came down, which added a lot of openness to the floor plan. But it is, in my opinion, a little awkward to have the kitchen, and then on the other side of the kitchen, you got the fireplace. And it kind of creates a spot for the TV, but that space is kind of cozy. You're not really going to use it that way. Now, we did it staging. We finally got the staging right here, but it took us a moment to do it, which increased our days on market. So as you can see, just heavily dated, heavy cosmetic fixer.
Very clean, though.
Very clean.
That's, for a lot of fixtures we buy, this is up there for one of the cleanest ones.
I would say so. I mean, they literally professionally cleaned that before we closed on it, I think. Garage, right? Nothing major there. Got your water heater, your mechanicals. This floor plan has the washer and dryer hookups in the garage, which certainly isn't uncommon. But you can get a flavor of the home and the condition that was in when we bought it. So again, I think I'm pretty spot on with the heavy cosmetic fixer definition,
yeah.
Dan.
Yeah, and something to note too is it had that red roof, which was a tin roof. They actually shaped little pieces of tin into what looks like shingles. Not ideal, it's just it's not common, and it's you're kind of stuck with red, but it didn't leak. It served its purpose, and so something I know you and Michelle worked on was making sure the house kind of matched the roof.
Yeah.
That's something that you had to think of for the curb appeal here.
Which kind of comes back to my having the end in mind statement too. We knew we weren't going to change the roof once we had gone through our walkthrough and had our numbers. So we have to plan around it, or else that red roof will stand out even more than it already did and does if we don't plan around it. So you'll see that completed, and actually we'll look at that now. So there's the beauty today. It doesn't look much different than that today because we just closed on it. I'm sure the new owners, well, I know the new owners are excited because they just emailed us this morning with a question about the home. And I'm sure they have plans to change things. I don't know what those are, but that's what it looks like today. And actually, why don't I pull up the after photos, because Nolan pulled those up as well. So these are the professional photos that we had taken of the home once we were completed. Many times we do an aerial, even though this particular home wasn't right next to the water or necessarily anything, I would say, magnificent view-wise. It gives people a perspective and a different view of the home when we do it. So these are aerial shots, obviously drone shots. And of course, when the home is right next to something dramatic and worthy of a view like water, mountains, etc., we're obviously going to highlight that. So these are the after photos. On the outside paint, we landscaped. We put this fencing, modern kind of simple half fence up for really curb appeal. I mean, it's not a privacy fence, but it adds a ton of curb appeal. One of my pet peeves, but sometimes timing doesn't allow it, is the grass. When we put new grass out, in this case, we use turf too, but this is real grass. You're looking at this photo, and if you aren't and you go back and watch this, I mean, you can see all the lines in the new sod that was rolled out. But we're always trying to maximize time or minimize time, and that means getting everyone there quickly as possible. But in this particular shot, and you can Photoshop that, you can see the lines of the grass.
Yeah, especially in the summer, when it was May, I think we first listed this around May, and it's getting hot out, and you want to minimize, like you said. Well, I don't know if you said it, but do it at the very end so that it stays as green as can, and you don't get any
not wasting money on watering.
And having to redo it in the summer.
So we changed the doors. As we go inside, you can see we got rid of that green carpet and added new lighting. I mean, this was the photo that we're looking at here. And for those of you that aren't watching it yet, the staging from that initial living room when you walk in, which looks great in this photo, but functionality, like in terms of functionality, it's kind of weird because you walk right in and the couch, you're not going to sit on the couch looking out your front door. At least I wouldn't, and I don't think many people would want to do that either. So one of the changes we made to help stimulate more interest was adjust the staging and create more of a sitting area focused on a TV. It was a small change, but I do believe, and it helped us get our buyer and actually close, because now we're looking at the view of the wall having been removed between that walk-in living area, and then as you turn the corner to go to your kitchen area and where the fireplace was and is. There's that fireplace that we modernized. We kept it. Arguably in San Diego, we could have eliminated that and created more of a kind of a TV area there, but we didn't have to. Some people like fireplaces. It was in okay shape, so we left it. Now we're looking at the kitchen. Very, very minor layout changes. We brought the island out we made the kitchen a little longer by pulling the island out, but we kept all the appliances in their original location.
Go back one pic, JD.
There?
Yeah, so what was smart that you guys designed here, and this is like a good talking point, is for these galley kitchens, these narrow kitchens.
Very narrow.
Instead of doing the upper cabinets on both sides,
good point.
When you do these floating shelves, it makes that space feel a lot bigger.
Yeah. So we did that in this case. Those of you go back and watch it, you'll see on a wall that we would normally put upper cabinets, we didn't. We put in floating shelves, which does make the kitchen feel bigger. It obviously eliminates some storage, and people can add cabinets down the road if they want, but it does open up the space dramatically, and that kitchen was and is pretty narrow. So we picked, light colors. The house already had a lot of good natural light capability from the windows. obviously brightening up the materials and the paint made a big difference in that. Now here's going into the master. Now that you can see in this photo, the double doors as they go into the master bedroom. What this photo doesn't highlight is that entrance is right around the corner from the kitchen, which ideally you have your master bedroom sort of removed from the living kitchen area, but that isn't the way that the builder designed these. But you go into these double doors, obviously new flooring, new paint, new fixtures, again, heavy cosmetic. There's now the walkway through the closet into the master bedroom. These materials aren't unlike other finished homes that you've seen on the case studies, but we picked some nice tile and laid it out in is that called? A herringbone?
Herringbone pattern.
Herringbone pattern, which is cool, right? People liking that these days. Little accent tile in the niche. I say niche, but some people say niche.
I say niche too. I think we should just
stick
say
with that
right here,
niche.
like it's niche.
Okay.
Something else to point back to was on the original shower, it was very small.
That's right. We made it longer.
You made the comment you're not having any late night parties in your shower with this one. There was like a storage cabinet closet that we eliminated to make that shower much bigger.
There you go. That's a good point. Maximize every square inch we can. We staged one of the rooms as like a cool kids room with 4 bedrooms. It's likely that a family is going to buy this, or someone looking to start or grow their family. So we create that, and staging obviously does that. We create that visual and that emotion. We staged one of the rooms as an office. Obviously, a home now is more than just where people live. It's many times where they work, especially more so since COVID. And so we now typically always stage one of the rooms as an office. It does reduce staging costs a little bit because we're using less furniture, but it's also functional and gives people kind of that visual. And that's really what staging is designed to do. In this particular house, we use gold accents. Not everywhere. We use some gold accents on the hardware, but not on the faucets, which isn't a negative. I mean, ideally we'd use gold everywhere, but sometimes, we mix and match depending on the house. So that's the home today. I think the key features of this home are the amount of bedrooms and the functionality of the home and the outdoor space. Now, depending on where you live, this yard may not look big, but in San Diego, this is a very adequate, decent sized yard, especially for coastal real estate and where this home is located. So we obviously took advantage of that. I mean, this particular photo, when you look at it, you're saying, well, what happened to the grass? Well, it was taken before we put the grass in the back, which isn't ideal. We had to go send someone back to photograph it. And there you go. There's a shot of it with the second photo, or the second round of photographs that we went back and took. So good sized yard. Couple things, this is kind of mixed in with some of the original after shots and then some of the shots that we sent them back to take.
It goes to show what a difference it makes, though.
Big difference.
It's like if you want to...
Big difference, actually.
It's not like cutting corners in the word, but if you would say it's adequate.
Yeah.
It's like, the backyard's adequate. But you spend a little, just a few more dollars back there, and it completely transforms that space.
Yeah. We all want to pay attention to the key, selling features of our home, whatever those are. Is it the yard in this neighborhood, or your neighborhood? Is it the bedroom count? Is it the front yard area? Whatever it is, and you spend a little bit more there, and we did that here in the yard, and you'll see, and it shows. So it makes a big difference.
And it looks really red from the sky, that roof.
It was really red.
Actually, it looks pink there.
It does look pink there. No doubt about it. That roof is red.
Yeah.
But this is the finished product, and it came out great. I think one of the unique things about this particular case study is that when we ended up bringing it on the market was at the end of May, the beginning of June. And for those of you paying attention, and I'm sure most of you, if not all of you are, that's when the market began or was changing, and interest rates are going up. The Federal Reserve was doing what they needed to do to curb inflation, which they're still obviously working on, but they seem to have a handle on. Market was slowing down, and things changed literally when we listed this home. So we ended up bringing it on the market initially on May 31st, 2022. And our original list price, which in hindsight was a little hot. Was 1,259,000. Now, almost right around there is when rates kind of shot up and things slowed down. So in hindsight, which you don't have the benefit of when you're there, but we would have listed it a little bit lower. But we decided to give it a shot and see if we found the buyer that was maybe had locked in their interest rate lower and wanted to.
Yeah. And in fairness, you know, the house across the street was just a little bit bigger, but outdated. It almost looked like how ours looked. That closed in May for 135. So it's like, all right, it's a little bigger but dated. That's to balance that out. It's across the street. Buyers and agents should see that as a comp. But like you mentioned, things shifted so much. Who knows what that guy's rate was?
Exactly.
You know, when he locked that up in April. So it made sense at the time. You know, looking back, sure, we could have done things differently, but
it did make sense.
Yeah, we gave ourselves a chance.
Yep. So 1,259,000 was our original list price. Before we sold the home, we ended up having, which is quite a bit for what the market had been doing, 10 open houses. We originally received, which we actually didn't end up coming to terms on. We originally received our first offer on the 18th of June. So very short, not too far after our original list price. And again, in hindsight, original offer that we got was from that first buyer, which we didn't end up working with, was 1.2. Now, if I were to go back, I would have worked a little bit harder to create a middle ground. They were kind of stuck at 1.2, and I was not ready to come down to that number at that time as I was negotiating. So we didn't end up coming to terms with that buyer. Ultimately, the buyer that we did work with, we accepted an offer at $1,212,500. Now, again, learning lesson here. We don't get a chance to go back in time and change our decisions, but I'm going to teach around that now. You know, if you get a strong buyer and you're in a position to make money, you know, in any market, you want to make it happen. We had, and I'll speak personally, with what the market had been doing. Even though I've been investing now for 20 years, you get kind of caught up in the hype of the market. And, you know, personally, I would have worked a little bit harder with that original buyer at 1.2 to try to get them up, because our additional hold time and holding cost, we would have probably ended up at the same kind of number profit-wise. But you live and learn, and that's why we're doing this as a case study.
Yeah, and something else you look at too is the inventory. You know, when we have that offer and we look at inventory and say,
nothing.
Well, what else are they going to buy for 1.2 or 1.259 or somewhere in the middle? Nothing. You know, there was higher houses at 1.3 that were sitting active. When we bought the house in January, there was 5 homes available in that area. 5. And so, you know, when we make this decision, and, you know, at the time there was maybe 15 or 20, that's still super low.
Very low.
You know, so it's like, well, okay, they're going to go buy something else, which there isn't, or you're going to pay our price. Yeah. And it's a good reminder, like you said, that the market talks to you. You know, if that's what you're getting and you have no other offers, then that's a good sign of what's going to happen.
Yeah, and since when we listed it to when we ended up accepting our offer and closing, I mean, rates had gone up, 2 points.
Yeah, full 2. Yeah.
So, you know, you don't often plan for that in your analysis. But again, that's why Dan and I decided to do this as a case study, because, you know, when you get experience over time and the market does go up and down, and, you know, the market's changed and changing. So you want to factor that into your pricing. You know, you may even want to look at what is your cost basis on a property and what's the market doing? And are you okay putting it out there, you know, just at a break even because you see the market trending down as it is in many areas? I don't want anyone to lose money, and I certainly don't even want people to break even, but it might be an appropriate exit strategy for you if you're not planning on renting it. So something to look at. Total market time was 46 days. Now, the reason I say total market time is because we actually, with our buyer that we closed on, market time there was like 4 or 5 days or something like that. 4 days. Yeah. So we had relisted it. Let's see. I think I put a screenshot in here of that. So we had relisted this home, which is a good thing to do after a period of time, 3 times on this particular property. And when we relist a home, we don't just change things, the price, et cetera, although sometimes we do that. we actually expire it and relist it, which is what I'm talking about here 3 different times, because that way we can, it shows up, as a new listing. It's refreshed for people when they have automatic searches online. We'll change some photos.
It's resyndicated.
Resyndicated. We'll adjust the remarks. We may, depending on what the market's doing, adjust the price, and we did here. So we originally listed at $1,259,000, and then 15 days later we relisted it at $1,199,000. So that was us deciding to go in at a price, or listed at a price on the second relist of, really pushing it to get an offer, and
that's below the ARV.
That's below the ARV, yeah. But we felt we could get the offer, maybe multiple offers, negotiate up. And then we had that listing going for 22 days. And then I went back over to the house and I gathered, I went through, kind of not as JD Esajian, real estate investor, CT Homes, one of the owners of the home, but I went through as JD Esajian. I'm looking to buy the home with my wife and my son. I'm in the marketplace right now. How does the house, really feel? Walked in, and the renovation looked and looks great. We showed the photos of that. But some of the things that stood out to me when I walked in were the way that living room was staged. I just couldn't see a great spot, because we didn't create it in the staging, to put the TV and the family to hang out. That was really the big thing. Also, in the backyard, I felt that we underutilized some of the space. And one of the things that we added in the backyard, ultimately with this last listing, was a fire pit. So we did that in the backyard. We added some games back there. I think we put in a cornhole, which I don't know that we have a photo of, but we really created, and as I like to say, sold the sizzle, not the steak. And I think the best feature of that home was the functionality of the bedrooms, one, and really more so than that was the outdoor space. So we really hyped that up. We put some things out there, rephotographed it, to really have people, change the staging around. And ultimately, by doing that, we secured our buyer within 4 days. Now, I can't say if we had done all that out of the gate and listed it that first time, would we have had, found our first buyer way sooner? I think we might have.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
That's when the market, there was so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
And buyers literally just got to the sidelines and let's wait and see what happens, because prices were changing, rates kept going higher, and people are nervous. So it's sure, we could have not. It happens. That's why we're here talking about
Exactly.
this. It's a good case study. You talking about going back to the property. In photos, we get it staged, and then photos
Look great.
You can go through it and it looks great.
Yeah.
But when you go to the property, and when you have dozens of properties, it's hard to get to everyone.
That's true.
We have a team in place, and every team member has their own position, but it's a different experience, to actually go to the house. And then, just like you said, how would it live?
Yeah.
And that TV and the couch, it's I'm not going to sit here looking at the front door.
When I teach the rehab boot camp, I always talk about, when you're analyzing a home, you want to analyze it as an investor and as a buyer too, like a retail buyer. And that's wearing your investing hat, and you're kind of, ultimately going to buy the home hat, and that family that buys on emotion. Because people that buy a home to live in, they're buying on emotion. And while photos grab someone's attention online to go see the home, if that same emotion isn't created when they get there, then there's a disconnect. And especially when that happens along with rates changing and people's buying power changing, then you have a property that can sit 46 days when maybe, it should have only sat 4 days. So there's a lot of lessons in this case study. I think at the end of the day, a big one is, no matter what the market's doing, right, you need to know what it's doing, but then you need to make sure you're taking advantage of everything that the home has to offer and really maximizing your sales tools. And great photos, great staging, but then you got to decide, how is the house going to live, and are you showcasing that in the best light? I often talk about writing a great description, and this is the description for that home. So you're telling a story, and the photos have to line up with the story that you're telling, but it also has to be played out the same way when they go to the home. If you're talking about this family home, spacious, comfortable, great floor plan, which the home has, and then you walk in and you're like, well, where's the living room? Where's the family room? Where is this?
You have a feeling of being let down.
Yeah. Then you couple that in this case with rates changing a lot. and then you get a property that sits a little longer than it should. So nothing's neutral in a listing. Nothing's neutral in a home. We did write a great description. We did renovate a great home. Market factors created a scenario where it sat longer than it should have. As another sales tool, and I've talked about this, Dan and I have on case studies, we have something called CT Certified, which is just a fancy way for us to advertise that we do some things, and I think all of you should do some things too when you're selling a home that make it easier for someone to buy a home from you. We just changed this. Things like opening escrow, we do that ahead of time here in San Diego because that's who we use. We close property with escrow. Some states use attorneys, obviously. We professionally clean our homes. We have a virtual tour. We take care of termites up front. We provide a home warranty and pay for it. Another thing that we've added in this current market, and it's our number one point that we highlight, is we offer interest rate buy downs. And what that means is, we can, depending on the accepted offer and the right price, give your seller an amount of money that they can use to go to their lender and buy the write down. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, when you go to get a loan, if you want to or someone wants to, you can put a chunk of money, you can pay the lender a chunk of money, and by doing that, they'll lower the rate that you're able to get and lock that in, for the life of your loan. So we offer that now in our CT Certified program because people used to be able to borrow money at below 3%. And now they're, around 5.5%, maybe a little bit below 5, depending on what kind of loan they're getting. So,
and that can save the buyer tens and tens of thousands of dollars
over the life of their loan for sure. So as we wrap up this case study here, full circle, here are all the numbers. So we bought the home. The net price after the commissions came back was $942,000. We bought it in January of this year, at the end of January. Original ARV when we bought it was $12250. $1,220,000. Our original list price was $1,259,000. Market value stayed pretty consistent at $1,220,000. We spent $158,000 in renovations. Total financing cost between bank lines of credit and our private investor was just over $40,000. Transactional costs, commissions that we paid out, closing costs when we sold the home was $39,000. Contract price, closing price was $1,212,500. We sold the home on August 4th of 2022, so very recent. And at the end of the day, when we close all that out, not the number that we had penciled in when we bought it, but we made $20,447.71. Now, had we accepted an offer sooner, had less hold time, that number might have been closer to $30,000 if we didn't have to go back and restage the home and pay for that. That number can go up. But making money is a win, and in this market, in any market, so we're not going to sit here and cry over spilt milk. Does that saying apply here?
We could.
I guess.
Yeah, why not?
I guess it works here. But the important thing isn't what we made or didn't make on this case study. It's the learning lessons that we talked about throughout it. But this is a win at the end of the day, and I think I know we decided to use it for the reasons that we've mentioned in the learning lessons because it's very recent, and within this changing market, there's a lot to take away from it. Any final thoughts, Dan?
It's a good reminder when you're making acquisitions about being conservative and do not speculate.
Exactly.
We could have easily have speculated an ARV over 1.3.
Yep.
When we purchased this, and we could have paid a lot more than our $942. Things change. You have to have a buffer. I think we estimated 5 months for holding. We held it longer.
Yes.
The renovation went up. The sales price goes down. Typically, when those three things happen, you're going to lose money. Typically. This is a win. It's a small win. But circling back to your Dom. I've been waiting. I've been waiting for that.
I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. So Dom is a pretty cool movie character in the Fast and Furious franchise, but the acronym stands for Days on Market. Dom, the acronym DOM is Days on Market, and we talked about why we had 46 days on market instead of 4 days on market, because the closed listing that shows up on the MLS will show 4 days on market for this for that listing, because when we relisted it the third time, we opened escrow within 4 days, but our total, CTOM's total DOM, days on market, is actually 46 days. And obviously longer hold time, longer days on market means that you're spending more money regardless, and that's going to change your profitability.
Yeah. So with Dom,
So good.
great character.
Great character.
Probably Tokyo Drift. His acting was so good.
Oh, it was
in that
like, I
one.
mean, he
But-
should have won an Oscar for that.
But
performance.
with
Tokyo
Dom and real
Drift.
estate, we always talk about knowing your market.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to know your market, but to really understand your market. So when I pulled some stats for this case study today, when we purchased the home, the days on market was advertised at 20 days. Now that was real because back then in January, investors and sellers weren't relisting their properties. They were listing it and it would fly off the shelf and close. So that was real. Now it showed 11 days. The market is way different than January, and there's no way you can tell me that the days on market is half what it was in January. But we just explained why. Why? Because even we relisted it 3 times.
Others have.
So our 4 days is what gets calculated, not 47. And the list price received is another important piece of data that we keep track of. Back in January, it was 106% of list price.
So
received.
sellers were getting over 6% over what they were listing their homes for.
Now it shows 102%.
Mm-hmm.
So JD, we sold this house below ARV, below market value, but it's going to syndicate over 100% because we dropped it down to 199 or $1,199,000 to then generate offers. Point. So again, it's not real. That's why I say understand your market. Yep. You got to dig into comps, look at the history a little bit more. And not just pull a quick figure and think that that's the gospel. There's more to it.
And Dan is excellent at doing that. And I'm so glad he brought that up because it's one thing to get, a report from your agent, just look at the numbers and not dive into them anymore and make decisions based off of that. But you gotta know your market and dive into it. And so when we look at comps, we don't just look at, the days on market, the sales price. We also look at the listing history too, because that tells us, and in this case, if you look at the listing history, you'll see that we relisted it 3 times and our total days on market is actually way different than what the closed listing looks like. So as a real estate investor, there's a lot of ways to keep yourself sort of ahead of the curve and your business moving forward. One of the biggest ways is to research your market inside and out, backwards and forwards. And that's a great lesson. And probably, if not I would say the biggest learning lesson from this case study is that takeaway. So thanks for reminding me. Thank you, Dom.
Fast and Furious franchise.
Thank you for reminding me about the word of the day. Thank you for bringing that last bit of information up. And thank all of you for watching, supporting, subscribing, liking. Again, if you're listening to this and you're not watching it, I would highly recommend you go back and watch this episode for a lot of reasons, because the things we talked about will make more sense. The learning lessons will be ingrained deeper. Super happy to bring this 50th episode of the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Show.
And for the record, JD, you look much closer to 40 than 50. I have to clear the air here.
Thank you. I feel much better now that you say that. I try. I mean, like, as you know, I put Sabra hummus on my face every night to tighten the pores. And some of you are like, does JD really do that? Well, you'll have to tune into other podcasts to find out. But thank you for supporting us. Share this, like, subscribe, give us comments, feedback about what you want to hear more of, and share the word for us here at the Real Estate Investing Show. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully see everyone at Ignite later this year. But you better believe we'll see you on a future podcast. So take care, everyone.